Well, good morning, people. My name's Damian Colgan, and I'm here today to talk to you about the housing crisis in Auckland City, and particularly today about the deficit that we see in the Pacific Island communities. Prime Minister John Key and Auckland Mayor Lem Brown have campaigned on a slogan of Auckland being the world's most livable city. They've talked at length about the housing developments like Botany Downs or Stonefields in Mount Wellington, where the average house price is $700,000 to $800,000. Their silence, however, on the ethnic boundaries the developments create is staggering. When home ownership is running at 60% for the general population and only 24% for our Pacific Island communities, today I'm talking to Will Illolahia, activist, former manager of Herbs, current advocate for the PI communities, and aspiring board member for the ADHB.
Yeah, malole, Damien, and thanks again for the opportunity. And the housing situation that's been aired by both politicians, local and national, is a kind of thing that's a bit too late. But there is a correlation between deprivation of the economy and also the social aspect.
Um, the Auckland Council have recently released a affordable housing policy. Nowhere in this does it suggest a social housing program. Do you think there's a case for social housing models similar to those ratified by the UN and used in the US, the UK, Australia, and Canada?
Well, it's significant that New Zealand was actually quite ahead to the rest of the world in regard to setting up, as we know today, Housing New Zealand, and it's actually, Damien, what's concerning now is that because the government now, a lot of the Housing New Zealand clients are now being told that if they're paying market rent, that they've only got 2 years. Within 2 years, they'll be booted out. So there's a big gap between those that are actually on social housing and the actual marketplace. So, that doesn't solve the problem at all. Secondly, there's also as you've said, Damien, a move for for the government to and the local council to provide a social housing, and that they've said that they're going to build X amount of houses. The problem is that the actual houses themselves are quite expensive. I'm actually involved in the moment on a project called Earthships, because as you know, Damien, I've been quite active in the area of representing the disenfranchised or the downtrodden. Now, so we're in the process of trying to convince Ngāti Whātua and those iwis that are going to be involved in the Auckland area, and you'll be the first. You're the first one to know, Damien, that in actual fact we are now having meetings with Ngāti Whātua to provide them with this alternative housing. So we have a cheaper housing, and using technology, as you know, Damien. That's another aspect of our communities is the access of technology, and you just have to go to Google or website to find out all this information. And so we're in the process now of meeting with Ngāti Whātua. They've set aside a budget from their recent gains from the Waitangi Tribunal to build 26,000 houses. Now they've budgeted 320,000 per unit. An earthship of 3 bedrooms using recycled tyres, cans and bottles is only cost, depending on your like in your case, Damien, you might like to have a nice lounge, a spa, pool and whatever, but the basic cost is 28,000.
Yeah, look, you touched on the computer literacy of the Pacific Island communities. They still have quite a low computer literacy, and their use of the internet is amongst the lowest in the country. Do you see a lack of connectivity contributing to their communities being cut out of the loop?
Yeah, no, totally agree, Damien. In actual fact, in a couple of weeks' time, back in Tonga, they're now launching their fiber optic cable that's come in from Fiji. So we're kind of like behind the 8 ball, in other words. But as you've highlighted, by having this kind of technology, which is really the 21st century form of communication. Now we've actually got 300 computers, recycled tables and chairs, getting ready for a wired Marae project that we're doing, and also some community PI community projects in Southside, where the computers that were going to be thrown away in the rubbish bin is now going to be available, so that we can attack that problem that you've highlighted, Damien. Definitely that is a problem that we need to. So not only do we have to bring up our communities into regard to being competitive in the sense of the communication information industry, but we need to get them in there, because there's a lot of wealth of knowledge sitting there right on the screen that people just need to know.
All right. Finally, well, how do you think the PI community is portrayed in the social media? Do you think there's a positive outlook, or are we still stuck in the 70s of the racial undertones?
There's three forms of racism, Damien. One is the personal racism, where just a Joe Blogg would just come up and say to me, your coconut, your bunga, go home type number, which is the personal. Then there's the out and out racist who just believes that their culture is actually more dominant than the other. The other one is the institutional. The other one is the attitude racist. The other one is the institutional racism, and unfortunately, the media is part of that. They perpetuate the situation. For example, Dame, I'll give a good example. I live in the inner city now, and then when I'm walking down the crowd, especially amongst Asians and that kind of stuff, they you can see by their faces they're freaked out already. I mean, you know, mate, how friendly I am. I'm a friendly islander, mate. That's what Captain Cook called us. But just that alone, because of the fact that they get this media stereotype that we're a bunch of thugs, we're dumb, illiterate, and that we're no use. And that's the area where I think communications is actually somewhere we got to change. We seem to be front page or highlight and high rotate on the news items when we do something negative. We hardly hear a positive story about Pacific Islanders.
Well, I guess I have to thank you for your time there, Will. We're running out of space. Certainly, there needs to be a raise in the awareness and a shift in the attitudes towards our brothers in arms. Thank you so much for your time.